Right now at 6, as Oregon wildfires approach record-breaking numbers, communities are showing up to help.
There was smoke everywhere.
While ranchers take the firefight into their own hands.
It's like you're living a living hell.
Plus,
I'm John Adams in Longview. An independent report into sexual assault accusations at Mark Morris High School has been released. What it says coming up.
Then the fight over one line in Moda Center negotiations and why the Trailblazers say they can't move forward without it.
The first-class standard has been wielded as a weapon.
We need to know what we're buying.
Well, here we go. First at 6, we're following two major stories across Oregon. The ongoing wildfire threat as the state inches closer to record-breaking levels.
Plus, the latest in a push to get a deal on the table when it comes to the future of Moda and the Blazers, with the team's president answering and, in some cases, not answering questions from City Council. Thank you for joining us. I'm Christine Pedawanich.
And I'm David Molko. We'll get to fires in just a moment, but first to Evan Watson, who was in that council work session today. A few fireworks, Evan, but also a lot of questions.
A lot of questions, but at least these sides are talking to each other, right? That's helpful in any relationship, you'd say. The problem is the Blazers are still holding back, saying they won't provide details unless the city changes the current lease agreement. City leaders won't budge, saying they're looking forward, and removing a first-class standard requirement could open the door for the Blazers to leave. The Blazers and Portland leaders are finally talking, even if Moda Center negotiations are still stuck.
We need the details if we're going to be able to approve what we're actually, what we're spending. We need to know what we're buying.
The first-class standard has been wielded as a weapon, chilling our negotiations.
Dwayne Hankins, the Blazers' president of basketball operations, spoke to city councilors at Thursday's work session.
The city must acknowledge that the arena is and remains in first-class condition. Doing so removes the threat of litigation hanging over these negotiations so that our conversations can move forward.
Hankins is referencing the current lease agreement, which requires the Blazers to keep the Moda Center in first-class condition, or the city could theoretically sue the team. There's just one big problem.
They are only sued if they actually choose to move the team according to the bridge lease.
The city won't change the current lease or remove that first-class standard because it could open the door for the Blazers' owners to relocate. City officials want the team to stay in Portland.
If the Blazers are insisting on looking backwards, that is going to be a problem. The city of Portland is not looking to relitigate existing contracts. We are only interested in having that new conversation about the next phase of our agreement.
Portland Mayor Keith Wilson made it very clear to the Blazers reps.
We are not contemplating suing the Blazers, Rip City Management, or any other parties. And I just wanted to make sure you trust us in that discussion.
But Blazers officials say they're still worried about a lawsuit, so they're holding off on sharing more project details. Hankins says the Blazers have many objections to the city's draft term sheet for a new 20-year lease.
It contains more than 20 material departures from the state's language in Senate Bill 1501. It also adds hundreds of millions of dollars in extra costs that we hadn't discussed in the conversations we had earlier this year, creating further team deficit.
But right now, the Blazers aren't sharing those 20 issues. The city's proposal was always expected to expand on the state's framework. The term sheet includes requirements for union labor and annual payments back to the city, but it does provide full public funding. Council President Jamie Dunphy says he's optimistic now that the sides are at least talking.
I think that the distance between the Blazers and the city right now is pretty significant. I do think that once we are able to begin these conversations in a real meaningful way, we will arrive at a conclusion that is beneficial for everybody. I won't sign a blank check. I'm not assuming that it's just a done deal no matter what. And there's a lot of work to be done.
Portland councilors will vote on a term sheet on August 12th. As it stands, that proposal will be missing lots of key details. City leaders hope it's a signal of clear intent, if they agree to signing a deal, that convinces the Blazers to engage in more active negotiations. David?
Tick-tock, tick-tock. Thanks, Evan. We'd like to know what you're wondering about when it comes to the future of Moda. You can text your question to the number on the screen. That's 503-226-5088. We will add it to our growing list as we work to get clarity and hopefully answers. Okay, let's talk about the other big story this evening, wildfires, as Oregon approaches a record-breaking season with more than 1.8 million acres burned, give or take about 19 times the size of the city of Portland.
Yeah, as resources are stretched thin, hundreds of volunteers are working alongside firefighters to contain the flames, and some of them are ranchers trying to protect their own lands.
Let's kick off team coverage with Devin Haskins. Devin, you caught up with an Eastern Oregon rancher who is working nonstop, essentially to save his livelihood.
Yeah, that's right. And he describes his days as emotional, grueling, and very tiring. I talked with Danny Posey with Damn Beef. He's been posting daily videos online over the last week about the hard work he and others are putting in to save their land.
We're up here today on the other fire.
He has a front row seat to the fire lines in Eastern Oregon.
Kind of been crazy. These fires have just gone wild.
For the last week, Danny Posey has been working these lines.
Extreme high emotions. It's like you're living a living hell.
One fire after another near his ranch in Malheur County.
I was on a real good cat, so I was cutting high gear at about 8 miles an hour, laying that line over, and the flames are just running up the ridge right behind you. So, it's something that you just screw around, you could die.
He's a rancher, but he's also a member of the Gentura RFPA, the Rangeland Fire Protection Association. The group acts like a volunteer fire department focused on protecting more than 17 million acres of rangeland, crops, and sage-grouse habitat. There are 29 RFPAs across the state, made up of 1,300 volunteers. Some of them ranchers, just like Danny.
The local RFPAs with the local BLM guys, that's what's kind of out here getting this thing done. We've been going hard on this for a week.
And it's exhausting work in horrible conditions.
We've been sleeping 2 hours a night, and then you're running the 22-hour days. No naps, no laying down, no downtime. You're just going all day hard.
It is 1:30 in the morning, and so far we've punched 7 miles of dozer line.
This 24-hour time lapse captured by cameras from the Oregon Hazard Lab just shows some of the 200,000 acres the Coleman Creek fire has scorched.
As soon as any wind gets on the fire, it becomes quite a challenge to keep it within any control lines.
Because resources are spread thin, a team from California is leading this fire's response, made up of 150 firefighters, some even from the Southern Hemisphere.
We have firefighters from both New Zealand and Australia here on the incident with us.
For Danny, he's just tired of the fires and what he says feels like a lack of help.
Everybody just wants this to be over with, and we can't get no damn resources out here on these fires because there's so many fires in the west here in Oregon.
And these fires are having a devastating impact on these ranchers' livelihoods. Danny says that he doesn't know if he's lost any cattle, but is aware of one rancher that has lost their entire herd after the fire closed in around them. Guys, back to you.
Really feeling for those ranchers and everyone working so hard to keep those flames at bay. Really appreciate you bringing his story to light. Thank you, Devin. Well, team coverage continues with our Jake Holter. Jake, while the fires are mostly burning in central and eastern Oregon, some of the people coordinating the response are in Portland.
That's right, and we're actually outside the Northwest Interagency Communication Center downtown, where inside they are monitoring the conditions of all of the fires across the Northwest. At last count, Oregon had 30 large wildfires and Washington has 11. Lauren Maloney with the Coordination Center tells me that the highest priority fires in Oregon are the more than 100,000 acre Second Flat Fire in Harney County and the, get this, more than 300,000 acre Big Grass Fire in Malheur County, which has spread into Idaho. Thankfully, no new large wildfires have been reported in the last 24 hours. Maloney says nearly 18,000 firefighters and support staff are in the Pacific Northwest to fight these fires. Crews coming from 34 states and even as far as Australia. And there's a growing effort to help those impacted by the fires. Here in Portland, I caught up with a group that's been making donation runs to the Warm Springs Reservation, much of which under evacuation for the bench fire. One of the helpful supplies, I'm told, has been wet wipes.
We first got there last night. There was smoke everywhere, and it was like almost a blackout of smoke. And the wipes, it's not just for the kids, it's for everybody who didn't have water, so they couldn't shower, so that helped.
This afternoon, another donation run for Brown, this time to White Swan on the Yakima Reservation, which is practically surrounded by flames. Back to you.
A true team effort in so many ways. Jake Holter downtown. Thanks, Jake.